Hi everyone, I hope you're having a good day. Welcome back to our class about pop culture. I wanted us to start first with a small presentation. Let's see if I am sharing everything. Okay. Yeah, here. Can you see my presentation? Yes, okay. So before we begin with the presentations, with your presentations, I want us to have a small throwback. And so we have these 3 points that we all discussed in the last class, and that is that we all agree that pop culture has affected our society in different ways, that everything has the possibility to impact our society and in the different subcultures of society, and that there are both positive and negative effects of pop culture. Before we also need to rewind a little bit about signposts, and that is that the signposts help us organize our ideas during our presentations, especially when we are talking, that we have small words that remind us how to move on to a new point, to go into more detail, to talk about something off topic for a moment, to go back to previous points, summarizing what we are talking about, and to wrap a presentation. That I just want you to remember that you have to use these signposts during the presentation, and you know that we have them. I sent you the presentation, the other presentation to the group chat, so you have them there in case you need them while presenting. And also the useful phrases for discussion, there are also in the presentation. Given that after someone presents, we have to have a small presentation, a small debate, a small discussion. We need to also to use these useful phrases. And yes, it's your turn to present. I have all your presentations. Oh, me falta una presentación. I have almost all of your presentations here. Well, we have these two here. Who wants to begin while I later search for the other presentation? Either Gabi or Juanse.
Oh, I guess I can start.
Okay, there we go. And I have forgotten how. Okay.
Presentar. Oh,
Yeah. Sí, lo siento, se me ha olvidado. Anyway, you told me when to change, and your time. Wait a minute. You have 4 minutes. Your time starts now.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Percy Jackson and its impact in pop culture, since I feel like it's kind of a milestone in young adult and elementary level reading for a lot of people. Could you switch to next? Okay, so first a little bit of context. The books were written by Rick Riordan. He's written a lot of book series, tackling Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology, and there's also a new editorial line in Disney Hyperion, which is his publisher, that is called Rick Riordan Presents, where people can write books about the other cultures that he hasn't tackled yet. So I'm gonna go in a bit of a tangent to talk about that in the next slide. So, for example, there are books called The Dragon Pearl that talk about Korean cultures. There's also Arusha and the End of Time series that talks about Indian culture. There's also a Navajo culture book series, and there's also African cultures represented with Tristan Strong. So there are a lot of books that different authors from different backgrounds can present to a bigger audience using the popularity of Rick Riordan. Now, coming back to the point about Rick Riordan in specific, I would like to talk about the impact of fan art and fan fiction culture with this specific genre of books. And we can see here that it's very prevalent, and it has helped develop a lot of people's writing skills, the same as Harry Potter fan fiction has as well. But for example, I wanted to bring Viria, she's a very talented artist that has even not only stayed in the fan fiction um, subculture, she has also transgressed into popular culture and professional culture, since she is now the official artist for all the Rick Riordan art, which is what I will be using then in the following slides, showing that there's like an impact to real life professions from this culture. Now, I wanted to also talk about the representation that is present in the books. There are Latin American people in the books, there are African people, there are African American people, there are interracial relationships and families, there are Chinese and Canadian people, there are Arab and
You have
Muslims.
1 minute left.
Thank you. And there's also Native American people. I would like to mention the fact that there is a bit of troublesome representation, considering the fact that there may be some relationships that could be considered um, pedophilia, but for the most part, it's good representation from different cultures. And also, there's a big side to the Rick Riordan representation that I would like to end on, that is the LGBTQ plus representation. He explicitly mentions all the gods that are either pansexual or gender fluid in the books, and it treats it as a normal topic. And there are also other characters like Alex Fierro, who is gender fluid. There are asexual romantics, there are gay people, there are pansexual people in their books. And I feel like this has affected me a lot, because it was probably the first time I actually read a book that had these kinds of topics treated. So I was able to learn from it and get to know all these areas thanks to these books.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. You did really well because you divided the topics and you were able to feel all what you wanted to say in the 4 minutes time. And now, who wants to start with the discussion? If you guys want, I want to bring back this slide for useful phrases for discussion, so we know how to begin. And if no one wants to begin, I'm gonna begin then, saying that I completely agree with you, and I am also really grateful for the Rick Riordan books, because it was thanks to him that I saw uh, in pop culture representation about different sexualities and different identities, and it was in a good way and in a way that it was easier for kids to understand. So, does anyone else want to comment on that?
I haven't read the books, but I did realize when I saw the movies, I know it are not the books, so that they had a lot of these different characters and these different personalities. So I guess
I think she froze.
Oh no.
sure. So
You're back. Okay, you're back. Sorry, we lost you for a second.
okay, I was saying that I need to read the books, and that um, that I didn't know that I didn't have the full picture on the ideas or the personalities or everything um, they show. So I find that interesting. But I did realize that it's very dynamic, and you can see a bit of everything in the characters, at least in the movies.
And well, personally, I think that, for example, it was really interesting for me, like knowing about. Well, I have read the books before, the two first series, and watched whole movies. And I do think that, for example, one of the most shocking things for me was in the second book, about reading about the whole history of Nico D'Angelo, and also his trouble with all the things related to love, when it comes, for example, to the figure of Cupid and all that kind of stuff. And it's really a good representation of how queer and LGBTQ kids can feel in real society. And Rick Riordan just talks about it in a natural way and in such a good way that every kid that has ever felt in that way will feel identified to that, and having this strange that Nika shows and showing that there is nothing wrong with being different.
I would just like to say before you continue, Andrea, that I hate the fact, and I think that it's one of those controversial topics, that I hate the fact that Cupid outed Nico. Like, that
Yeah,
fucking sucks. Yeah.
that really sucks. That really sucks, especially in front of Jason. That really sucks. I mean, now that before I didn't think about it, but now it's just like poor Nico. He was forced to come out of the closet in that terrible way in front of someone he barely knew, but he respected. No, it was terrible.
That's true, and the worst part is that he actually respects so much Jason. So the way
Exactly.
he actually fear, it's incredible and horrible.
Yeah, that's so true. It was a point that needed to be said. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Yeah, we close this one. We have this one. And then I'm gonna find. I know it. I downloaded Sarah's presentation, but I don't know where I left it. So
Can Sarah go first? Is because I'm having a little bit of trouble with the speaking for a long time, so I
Oh,
have to wait.
okay, yeah. Then give me a second. Then you are gonna have to see my background. I have a mess here. Okay, la guardé por acá. Yeah, it's here. There we go. Okay, so remember you have 4 minutes, and it begins now. You're muted.
Hi, okay. So for a few minutes I'm gonna talk about pop culture and how it influenced my life. I'm not gonna give like one big concept example, rather I'm gonna give you like small bits and pieces that I have found I've been influenced by pop culture. So um, for example, first I want to say that pop culture is everywhere. Finding an example on how it changed my life was kind of hard because I realized that my whole life is influenced by it. So I realized that, for example, throughout all my life, I have always loved dancing, especially ballet. So I did it for years. I did it when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and I still love it. And I realized a while ago that when I was listening to some classical music, that it was because I really liked Barbie and the Nutcracker movie, which is one of my favorite ballet like pieces. So I wanted to be as graceful as she was, and I wanted to be, I don't know, look that way, I guess. Even if she was an anime character. Also, another movie that made me want to start a new hobby was The Ice Princess. Um, since thanks to that movie, I always wanted to learn how to ice skate. Um, Another example, which is not mine, but it is a few of my friends, is the TV show Grey's Anatomy. I have friends who were sold on the idea of studying medicine because of that show. However, I do also have friends that disregarded the concept of, studying this career because they didn't like it or they didn't like the portrayal of it. Um, the next one. However, I can thank pop culture for one of my biggest passions, which is acting and the whole film industry. When I was a young teen, I saw The Dark Knight, and this particular scene that is shown in the picture, where the Joker crashes Bruce Wayne's party, made me realize that I wanted to act. The scene to me has never lost its magic no matter how many times I have seen it. So I wanted to be able to create the feeling that I felt in other people. Then when I was older, watching Spider-Man Homecoming at the movie theater, and then at home watching all of the interviews of Tom Holland, who plays Peter Parker, I realized, and I had this it made me have this sense of, okay, I want to feel the excitement that he's feeling, this giddiness and this happiness of playing the role of his life, playing the role that he wanted to play since he was a kid, like his favorite
You
superhero.
have a minute. Yeah.
So basically, I wanted to feel that way, to be able to portray the characters that I have always looked up since I was young. For example, Wonder Woman, which is an example that was shown. It's one of my favorite characters, and it's one of the first movies that I felt represented. So pop culture made me realize that I love films, that I love TV shows, and watching everything that is related to it, from the movie to the backstage to behind the scenes to how they created it, how they wrote it, how they produce it. So basically, I'm made of pop culture references. So yeah, thank you for your thank you for your time.
You have 7 minutes left. Anyway, okay, so that was a great presentation. I must admit I've never seen The Dark Knight or any of the films. I know, I know. Please don't look at me like that. And but I understood. Like I kind of felt um, like I kind of understand the impact of this scene because of the way how you really talked about it. So that's a good way. You have a great way with words. And okay, let's discuss about it. Does anyone have anything to say about Sarah's presentation?
Yeah, I would like to go back to a point that Andrea also made before. I can't remember if it was in this class or the last one, but the fact that it can shape lives, like how you can choose your passions based on what you see on TV or on the movies, or even how the actors interact with the properties. So I think that it was a great way to uh, bring the class full circle.
Yeah, yeah, I said that right.
Yeah.
Also, I do agree. For example, with the fact that superhero movies impact on people's life, as we already talked about that. It is not about just Tony Stark making people studying mechanical engineer, or for example, seeing Wonder Woman in the big screen. But it is also, for example, now that we talk about a little bit of the Spider-Man, when you get to know Miles Morales and his impact to Latinos and Black people, it's a really big thing that the scenarios are being created for all of us. So it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, you are really right. And I also like how you talk about ballet and the impact of Barbie's films. Nobody would think that Barbie would affect someone, but that now that you think of it, it has a beautiful story, I guess, and it really helps little girls when they're growing up.
I think most girls are influenced by Barbie in some way or the other. Like if you don't have the doll, you have seen one of the movies, you have heard of her. I don't know. I think she's one of the biggest marketing I don't know, like pop culture.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you for your presentation, and it was beautiful. And let me close this here. And now we go to. Oh, great! Now oh no, it's here. I thought I lost it. Anyway, and now we begin with Gavi's presentation. Remember, you have 4 minutes, and they start now.
So my presentation is about One Direction and its impact in society and in my life. So to keep going, I'm gonna start with a little bit of context. And well, it's about One Direction is a band, a British boy band that was created in 2010 by Simon Cowell after the four guys lost the first stage of the presentation during the X Factor in the UK. Since then, they became really important. They sing with, I think, Psycho Records, and they start winning a lot of recognition with its great song that makes you beautiful. And then they became really, really famous and well known till the day. So we're talking about a little bit of the guys because it's gonna be important. It was made by Niall, Liam, Louis, Harry, and Zane, and they were presented by individuals, but then they joined together, and by now all of them has amazing career. They are huge artists. For example, Harry is an actor now. He also sings, and he's also really good known for everybody around the world. In the same case, for example, with saying that even though he hasn't released that amount of music, he's still one of the most known artists, well, Arab artists in the world, for example. And to continue, uh, why I choose One Direction? I think that besides the fact that they are huge because of their records and all their nominations and the world tours, they, if you talk with somebody, even if they like them or not, you know what One Direction is and what they did for, well, all the pop culture and all the people growing up. So, and for example, for me, they are really important because I knew about them after Zayn left the band, and I became a fan after that. And since then, I've been like standing them in different stages of their lives. I love Louis Tomlinson, and I believe that he has impacted me in so many ways that I think it's really important. And also them as a band, they became this British soft power now related with my career. I do think that when I talk about power and all this kind of stuff in international relations, One Direction are like the main source of British things in the world. Like everybody knew about One Direction in the because of all of these things. Yeah, you know, and their impact for me is that, for example, when I was living in the UK, the
You have
first
one
thing I
minute.
did, yeah, thank you. The first thing I did was going to a Nando's because it was like my childhood dream. And even though I'm a vegetarian, I could eat there. And it was amazing because I knew that that was a place really influential for One Direction. Also, well, the fact that I went to the UK was first impacted by One Direction because they were British. So I was amazed by them. Also, I think that by now their impact is huge. For example, Walls by Louis Tomlinson, that was released this year, has been one of the biggest albums of the season of the year. And I do think that it changes the way you see, in how you see them now and after all this time. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay, you don't have time left. Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. I really like it because stream walls, because you mixed it with you connected it with your major, and that's really important because you talk about it and how they have the soft power, and it's really true that the impact in the British politics and the impact in the world, it's really important. So you've got a great point there. And someone else want to comment about it?
Okay, so I'm gonna start by saying that I'm a huge One Direction fan, like Donald Trump huge. Um, I I'm a bit of a Harry fan after they broke up, because his music it's very influenced by rock and British rock. So he also broke a lot of records this year with Watermelon Sugar and with other songs. But what I wanted to say that I think it's really important in how pop culture is seen is the fact that they were one of the first bands, and I think the first band that changed the whole idea of the boy band concept. Like when you see the Beatles and when you see NSYNC and when you see Bastard Boys and you see all of these old 19s bands, you see that they are like this group of guys who sing, but they also have this choreography and they take the effort to make everything like very similar with One Direction. What happened was that basically they decided that they didn't want to have this idea of this puppet. So, and since each one of them has this different personality, I think that that made them unique and it made it more interesting because you get that you could relate to one of them at least. Like one likes this thing, another likes the other thing. So basically, I think that's really important because they changed the idea of how we saw boy bands and how we saw um, like people or artists portraying their music or showing their music because they gave a much more funnier vibe and a much more relaxed and cool vibe. So that's really important. And also, yeah, stream watermelon sugar.
Yeah, I also think so too because when you see boy bands right now after One Direction, they all kind of have the same vibe. They all try to have the same attitude of being friends and they being funny and that they want to be kind of cheeky, and they try to emulate the same energy that One Direction had. But and it's really interesting to see how sometimes they get it right, but sometimes they don't, and it's just really cringy. And that's something that One Direction never had because the connection was really good for them together. So you're totally right. The impact in the boy band culture is really great. Um, do you want to say anything?
Uh, okay, I wanted to kind of contradict something that Sarah said because I feel like even though there are things that One Direction revolutionized, I don't feel like the different personality thing was really something that One Direction created. Because like bands like NSYNC and even the Spice Girls really created this trend of having like the cool one, the funny one, the dopey one, to call it some way. So I feel like they did do something different, but they also emulated a lot of things from another era of boy bands.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to say it's not that they had different personalities, but rather that they show their different personalities when singing the songs. Like it's different. So, for example, when you see the Spice Girls, you know that we have Cool Spice and whatever Spice, and But
Baby
for
Spice.
but for example, when you see a concert of One Direction, you see like they're being goofy, and then you see that each one is doing a different thing that is based on their personality. Like you even see that their microphones were identified in a particular way to show each one of them. So I mean, of course, they emulated things because that's how culture works, because they also were influenced by pop culture, and you can ask each one of them and they had their own like artists that influenced it. But I do think that they took the whole have another personality in another level. Like I think they took it take it up a notch. So yeah, but I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay. Thank you so much, Gabi, for your presentation. We don't have more time, but I wanted you to say thanks. To say thank you so much for joining me in these classes. Your presentations were really great. All the topics were really interesting, and they brought us to have great debates and discussions about this, especially the last one when someone actually disagreed with someone's opinion. But we have this debate in a really smooth way, and I really like that. And um, later we're gonna discuss more about pop culture. This is a really big topic that it cannot be tackled in just one class. And I'll send you the feedback of your presentations later in the day per email. Thank you so much for your help, and I hope you have a great day.